Europe on the brink, power, faith, and the Eastern question between 1853 and 1856. Europe was dragged into one of the most consequential yet often misunderstood conflicts of the 19th century, the Crimean War. Far more than a regional struggle, this war pitted the great European powers against one another in a contest over balance of power, imperial survival, and religious prestige. The conflict erupted at a moment when the post-Napoleonic order, established after 1815, was beginning to fracture under the pressure of nationalism, imperial ambition, and technological change. At the center of this instability stood the Ottoman Empire, once a dominant Eurasian power, now widely derided in European diplomatic circles as the sick man of Europe. Decades of uneven modernization, military stagnation, and financial weakness had left the Ottomans vulnerable, and their decline posed a dangerous question for Europe. Who would inherit Ottoman territory if the empire collapsed? This dilemma, known as the Eastern Question, haunted European diplomacy for generations and set the stage for repeated crises and wars. Russia, expanding steadily southward since the 18th century, saw Ottoman weakness as an opportunity. Successive Russo-Turkish wars had already shifted the balance in Eastern Europe and the Black Sea region in Russia's favor. By the early 1850s, influential figures in St. Petersburg dreamed of transforming Constantinople into the center of a renewed Orthodox Christian world under Russian leadership. Tsar Nicholas I, a deeply religious autocrat, viewed Russia as the rightful protector of Orthodox Christians living under Ottoman rule. France, under Emperor Napoleon III, claimed the same role for Roman Catholics, while Britain and Austria feared that any Russian breakthrough at Constantinople would shatter the European balance of power. What began as a dispute over access to holy sites in Bethlehem quickly escalated into a geopolitical confrontation, involving prestige, faith, and imperial ambition. By 1853, diplomacy had failed, armies were mobilizing, and Europe was sliding toward war. From diplomacy to disaster, the opening phase of war. The immediate spark of war came from a seemingly narrow religious dispute, control over Christian holy sites in Ottoman Palestine. When the Ottomans, under French pressure, granted Catholics increased privileges at the Church of the Nativity, Russia responded with outrage. Tsar Nicholas I sent his envoy to Constantinople with an ultimatum demanding recognition of Russia as the official protector of all Orthodox Christians in the empire, a demand that would have effectively made the Ottomans a Russian client state. Encouraged by Britain and France, the Ottomans refused. Russian forces responded by occupying the Danubian principalities of Moldavia and Wallachia, territories nominally under Ottoman sovereignty. With their finances strained and mobilization unsustainable, the Ottomans declared war in October 1853, launching what initially appeared to be yet another russo-turkish conflict. The war's early phase exposed stark imbalances in military power and modernization. Russia possessed the largest army in Europe, but its size masked serious logistical weaknesses. Supply shortages, poor roads, and the need to defend vast frontiers limited the number of troops that could be effectively deployed. The Ottoman army, though smaller and poorly organized, benefited from modern Western artillery and determined defensive leadership. At sea, however, the balance favored Russia. In November 1853, Russian warships annihilated an Ottoman fleet anchored at Sinop, using newly developed explosive shells that devastated wooden ships. The engagement shocked European observers and provoked outrage in British and French newspapers, which denounced the battle as a massacre. The destruction of the Ottoman fleet convinced London and Paris that Russian power posed an unacceptable threat, transforming a regional war into a full-scale European conflict. A great power war. Britain and France entered the conflict by March 1854. Diplomacy had collapsed completely. Britain and France issued an ultimatum demanding Russian withdrawal from the Danubian principalities. When Russia refused, both powers declared war, fundamentally altering the character of the conflict. What had begun as an Eastern war now became a struggle among the great powers of Europe. Britain sought to block Russian expansion, protect its trade routes, and prevent any Russian dominance over the Turkish Straits. France, eager to reclaim international prestige after decades of diplomatic isolation, joined the war to assert itself as a continental power and to challenge Russian autocracy. Together with the Ottomans, Britain and France formed a powerful coalition that dominated the seas and possessed some of the most advanced military technology of the era. The Allies' advantages were especially clear at sea. Their combined navies dwarfed Russia's, enabling them to strike across vast distances from the Black Sea to the Baltic and even the Pacific. On land, French troops excelled in logistics and organization, while British soldiers wielded the new mini-rifle, whose superior range and accuracy would prove decisive in combat. Yet despite their technological edge, the Allies suffered from serious shortcomings, inadequate planning, poor intelligence, and overconfidence. These flaws became evident when the Allies decided to shift the war to Crimea, targeting the Russian naval base at Sevastopol. The decision marked a dramatic escalation, transforming Crimea into the main theater of a conflict that would soon descend into one of the most brutal sieges in modern history. Baptism of fire. Crimea, Elma, and Balaclava. In September 1854, Allied forces landed on the Crimean Peninsula, catching the Russians off guard. Confident of a swift victory, British and French commanders advanced toward Sevastopol, only to encounter stiff resistance along the Alma River. The battle that followed revealed both the strengths and weaknesses of the Allied armies. Russian troops fought bravely from fortified positions, but their outdated weapons proved no match for the Allies' modern rifles. After intense fighting, the Russians retreated, opening the road to Sevastopol, yet the Allies failed to capitalize on their victory, delaying their advance and allowing Russian engineers to strengthen the city's defenses. This hesitation transformed what might have been a quick campaign into a prolonged siege. The months that followed were marked by confusion, heroism, and catastrophic mismanagement. At Balaclava in October 1854, Russian forces attempted to cut the Allies' supply line. The battle produced one of the most famous episodes in military history, the charge of the Light Brigade. Miscommunication among British officers sent a cavalry unit charging directly into well-defended Russian artillery positions. The result was a slaughter that stunned the British public and became a symbol of aristocratic incompetence in command. Just weeks later, the Battle of Inkerman plunged both sides into chaotic close combat amid thick fog, where small unit initiative and sheer endurance determined survival. Despite heavy losses, the Allies held their ground, crushing Russian hopes of breaking the siege in war, suffering, and the birth of modern warfare. As winter set in, the Crimean War revealed its true nature not as a glorious contest of arms, but as a grim struggle against disease, cold, and logistical failure. More soldiers died from cholera, dysentery, and exposure than from enemy fire. The British Army, in particular, was scandalously unprepared for winter warfare, lacking proper clothing, shelter, and medical care. Public outrage exploded back home as newspaper reports exposed the suffering of ordinary soldiers. For the first time, war was being followed almost in real time thanks to the telegraph and mass circulation newspapers. Journalists and photographers brought the battlefield into people's homes, transforming public opinion into a powerful political force. Amid this suffering emerged figures who would permanently change warfare and medicine. British nurse Florence Nightingale revolutionized military nursing, introducing sanitation and administrative reforms that laid the foundation for modern medical practice. On the Russian side, Surgeon Nikolai Pirogov pioneered battlefield triage, saving countless lives through systematic treatment. Meanwhile, Sevastopol endured relentless bombardment as railways and industrial production enabled unprecedented levels of firepower. The war became a laboratory of modern conflict, blending old tactics with new technologies: rifled weapons, railroads, mass media, and industrial logistics, ushering in a new era of warfare. Victory without resolution. The war's end and its legacy in September 1855. After nearly a year of siege, Allied forces finally captured Sevastopol's key defensive positions. The fall of the city marked the effective end of major fighting, though at an appalling cost in human life. Russia lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers, most to disease, while the Allies suffered tens of thousands of casualties. Exhaustion, financial strain, and diplomatic pressure pushed all sides toward peace. Negotiations culminated in the Treaty of Paris, which forced Russia to accept the demilitarization of the Black Sea and abandon its claim to protect Ottoman Christians. The Ottoman Empire survived, its territorial integrity temporarily preserved, while France emerged with renewed prestige and Britain with a reaffirmed, though increasingly questioned, global role. Yet the peace resolved little in the long term. The Eastern question remained unanswered. Russia would seek revenge and reform, and the Ottoman Empire continued its slow decline. Austria found itself isolated, and the alliances forged during the war reshaped European politics in the decades that followed. For ordinary soldiers and civilians, the war left scars that transcended diplomacy, shattered communities, displaced peoples, and a haunting realization that industrial-age warfare had arrived. The Crimean War stands as a bridge between old and new, a conflict rooted in religion and empire, yet transformed by technology, media, and modern state power. Its legacy still echoes today, reminding us that even wars fought in the name of honor and faith often leave behind unresolved questions and enduring human suffering.